welcome to this second webinar of Carbon Lab 10th anniversary celebration. So we have recently completed our 10 years in IIT Hyderabad, and it's our great pleasure to have today with us Professor Sriram Ramakrishna from NUS and Dr. Nisa Salim from Swinburne University of Technology, Australia. So as we know that on the occasion of 10th year celebration, we have started this webinar series. First webinar was arranged on 20th December in the field of energy storage devices and carbon nanomaterials. And this is the second webinar in the series on nanofibers. So as I mentioned, today we have our distinguished speakers. And before we go to the talks today, we have a small presentation on the Carbon Lab contribution in the area of nanofibers. So let me just play that presentation. So let me share the screen. So with this brief introduction of Carbon Lab, I now hand over the proceeding to my students, Akansha and Poonam, to proceed further.
speaker of today's webinar. We now look forward to Dr. Nisa Salim's talk. Dr. Nisa Salim received her PhD in material engineering from Deccan University and is currently a Vice Chancellor's Initiative Research Fellow at Swinburne University of Technology. She has published over 35 high impact journal papers, 3 book chapters, and 1 patent. She has been recipient of several awards, including the latest Phillips Law Postdoctoral Award of uh, uh, Award 2020 for the Physical Science by the Royal Society of Victoria. She has awarded with the Excellence in Scientific Research by Early Career Researcher in the Physical Science within 7 years of completing a PhD from the Victorian Research Institute. She develops multiple functional materials with nature-inspired design to solve challenging problems. Dr. Nisha Salim developed the material in various lengths and dimensions, creating working prototype or devices using a novel molecular self-assembly approach. So without wasting the time, let's welcome Dr. Nisa Salim to enlighten us with her presentation. Welcome, Dr. Nisa Salim.
Thank you, Poonam, for the very kind introduction. I hope you can see my presentation. Can you?
Not yet, ma'am.
No, not yet. Yeah, it's coming now.
Okay. So thank you. So before I start, I'd like to thank Professor Sriram Ramakrishna for the excellent presentation. I find the talk is very inspiring and motivating, especially he mentioned about how best we should best use our thoughts and emotions, and in the future how we can how we can access to the devices. So these two things I find very striking and I'm pretty sure that maybe in these days I will be brainstorming a lot about the intelligent materials and how well I can utilize my emotions and thoughts. So thank you so much for the fantastic presentation. And again, the next is I'd like to thank Dr. Sharma for the invitation, and congratulations Carbon Lab for the successful 10 years at IIT Hyderabad. And I feel very privileged to be part of Carbon Lab. Because it's been almost 2 years we started the collaboration, and we currently have 2 joint PhD students. So I'm sure that in the future we would be strengthening our collaborations through Dr. Sharma's Carbon Lab in a number of ways. And I wish all the best to the group's all future activities. Okay, so before I start, I would like to talk a little bit about Swinburne University of Technology, its location and structure. So our university is located in Melbourne. That's a part of a state called Victoria. So it's the same state where University of Melbourne, Monash, RMIT, and Deakin University are located. So Victoria has been regarded as the education state. So we have 3 campuses in Melbourne and 1 in Sarawak, Malaysia. We have 3 faculties in the universities where 19 departments are part of it. We also have 15 research centers, 5 strategic research institutes. So Melbourne is the most livable city with quality healthcare, education, culture, and infrastructure. So this is a perfect place to consider for study and live if you are interested. Okay, so now coming to my presentation. So I've been working on carbon fibers for more than 5 years. So I'll be discussing some of my research activities we have done in this space. I will be also covering some of the current research activities that I'm doing at Swinburne University. So I thought it might be interesting for carbon labs activities. So carbon fibers and carbon fiber reinforced composites are important class of materials in the areas where weight reduction and fuel consumption are necessary. So automobiles and aerospace are the major industries seriously considering weight reduction of cars and aeroplanes. This is mainly to reduce energy consumption and carbon dioxide emission. So carbon fiber composites provide considerable weight reduction and excellent load carrying capacity while maintaining the strength needed to withstand internal pressures. So those who don't know, carbon fibers are synthetic fibers, look like human hair. So as I mentioned before, these are important materials in the area where weight reduction and strength are necessary. So as you can see, there is a comparison between carbon fiber with human hair. So the diameter of the carbon fibers are around 5 to 7 microns, so which is around 10 times smaller than human hair. But when you consider the strength, it is about 8 times stronger than steel. So here is a quick representation of carbon fiber production. The starting material for the production of carbon fiber is a synthetic polymer called polyacrylonitrile or PAN. So currently about 90% of carbon fiber production is from PAN, mainly due to the good carbon yield and its stability. So this PAN undergoes a process called wet spinning. So here we are extruding the polymer in a solvent that's called a coagulation process, and that's the way it forms a white fiber or precursor fibers. So these precursor fibers, when experience high temperature treatment over 1000 degrees, then form carbon fibers. So these carbon fibers later embed in a polymer matrix and make structural composites. So there is a strong demand for carbon fiber manufacturing industries to meet the demands arising from various sectors. But the challenge is, though carbon fibers are known for more than 40 years, most of the details about carbon fiber production is still unknown, because the exact composition of each PAN fiber varies from one company to another and is generally considered as a trade secret. So we only have some indications like the quality of the carbon fiber is directly dependent on the precursor. About 90% of carbon fiber production is from polyacrylonitrile or PAN, and this PAN will have 2 to 10% of co-monomers contents in it. The choice of the PAN co-monomer polymer, it has to have a certain molecular weight that has to be between 100,000 to 200,000 with a polydispersity index of 2 to 3. And again, the composition, so the sequence of the co-monomers and this PAN chain, that also matters. So to better understand more about the precursor science and also to convert these polymers into the fibers, we work with our international collaborators. So with the support of government funding, we carried out this research. So we have designed and synthesized a number of highly controlled PAN in collaboration with University of Southern Mississippi for high performance carbon fiber production. So once we design and synthesize a polymer, the next stage is the spinning process to convert the polymers into a white fiber. So this wet spinning process involves many steps, and we have to consider a number of process parameters. So again, the exact spinning formulation of these fibers are usually confidential. Then we have conducted all the carbonization studies back in Australia. So we made a comparative study by selecting 3 co-monomers, and we carry out the synthesis by using both conventional and controlled polymerization techniques. So we have included both acidic and neutral co-monomers in our study, such as itaconic acid, methacrylate, and methyl methacrylate. And we have used free radical as well as raft polymerization methods for the design and synthesis of all these polymers. So once we completed the synthesis, we have conducted stabilization studies on these polymers. So this is a process which is the most critical and time-consuming step in the carbon fiber manufacturing. So during this stage, the fibers attain its stability to withstand high temperature carbonization. So we found that the polymers synthesized by controlled polymerization promotes cyclization reactions, thereby stabilization process. So once we synthesize the polymer, converting these polymers into white fiber is the critical part in carbon fiber production. So to learn more about wet spinning process and to get the training on the pilot scale fiber spinning facility, I was visited University of Kentucky. So this the spinning facility at University of Kentucky is a very specialized one, and they have more than a decade of experience in fiber spinning and fiber science. So we have conducted various spinning studies by changing the coagulation conditions. So in our study, so we used 80% of organic solvent. In another study, we changed the bath concentration to 77.5. And we also developed a new method to measure the porosity of the fibers during the fiber spinning process. So please, if you are interested, please check our article to learn more about this porosity measuring technique. So here is the picture of carbon fiber production line at Deakin University. We have carried out the stabilization and carbonization process in this production line. So here is the work where we carbonized the fibers we spun at University of Kentucky. So you can see that by making a slight change in the spinning condition, that is the coagulation conditions, that can affect the final carbon fiber properties. We were also interested to make changes in the carbon fiber production line, or try using alternate precursor fibers to come up with cost-effective ways to make carbon fibers. So in one study, we applied a higher tension by using a lower temperature in the furnaces, and we wanted to check the final carbon fiber properties. So we found out that we come up with an automobile grade carbon fibers just in the lower temperature furnace. In another study, instead of using the normal carbon fiber precursors, we selected a textile grade PAN fibers, which is much cheaper than carbon fiber grade 1. And in the study, we come up with a tensile strength of 3.25 gigapascal and a modulus of 245. So this work is currently considered to publish in Polymer Degradation and Stability. So it has been reported that carbon fiber anisotropy can cause premature delamination between fiber and the matrix, especially in some high stiffness composites. So this happens mainly due to the fiber's unique microstructure and the graphitic carbon. Between the graphitic sheets, there are packets of amorphous carbon and voids. So although the tensile properties of carbon fibers are readily measured through robust and direct techniques, but the determination of transverse properties of the carbon fibers is very complex because the diameter of the fibers are so small. So to address these issues, we come up with an approach. It's a very simple and direct method to measure the transverse and longitudinal properties of carbon fibers through micropillar compression. So here is the typical example of the micropillars by focused iron beam milling, both in longitudinal and radial directions. So here is the fractured micropillars after the compression. So we have conducted these studies on 3 different carbon fibers with various modulus. We found that tensile stiffness was significantly higher than the compressive stiffness in all these 3 fibers. And there is a connection between the degree of crystallinity with the stiffness properties. So further in my research, our target was to make high performance fibers. So an ideal fiber is one that will have very high strength, modulus, damage tolerance, and compressive properties. So as you can see from the figure that the fiber will be free from all defects and impurities. So though carbon fibers are high strength materials, the mechanical strength of the current carbon fibers are limited by presence of voids, defects and impurities in their fiber structure. So theoretically, it is estimated that carbon fibers can be made 10 times stronger than currently available fibers. So one approach is to reinforce PAN with carbon materials like carbon nanotubes, graphene oxide, etc. So we used graphene oxide as the reinforcement for enhancing the properties of the fibers. So here is the picture of the fibers produced by mixing PAN with various amounts of graphene oxide. Also the representation of wet spinning instrument we used for producing these fibers. So the SEM images of the fibers confirmed that the fibers are free from any cracks or any damages, and we could make kilometers long continuous fibers with significant improvement in mechanical properties. So in the study, we have come up with around 115% improvement in tensile strength and also 150% improvement in tensile modulus. So we are still continuing the carbon fiber research in collaboration with Deakin University. Okay, so now I'm going to talk more about my research focus at Swinburne University. So here my research is more about functional carbon materials, where the structure of the materials are very critical. So we make carbon materials in different dimensions, such as fibers, films, and foams. So we want these materials to be multifunctional. And the approach we are using in this research is a self-assembly approach. So here is the summary of our approach to make these multifunctional carbon materials. So we start at the molecular level, where we design and synthesize polymer molecules and direct them to self-assemble. So we introduce special chemical functional groups into these molecules and make them interact. So that means we introduce attractive and repulsive forces among these molecular chains. These molecular interactions lead to make nanoscale structures that you can visualize using high-resolution microscopes. So these nanostructures can be created in different shapes and sizes and are highly stable and organized. We then introduce these nanostructures into microscale materials while preserving the order at nanoscale. So we can create fibers, films, or forms using the same approach. Finally, we develop macro-scale structures or devices to demonstrate the application of these materials. So we create working prototype of these devices or structures. So all these research is followed by the fundamental understanding of structure property relationship from molecular design through to functionality. To create structures or designs at nano levels, we use a class of polymers called co-polymers. So these are the polymers that consist of 2 or more polymers bonded together by a covalent bond. So here is a representation of a block of polymer where the polymer has 2 units joined together called a diblock of polymer. So these, because these polymers possess a covalent bond, the blocks in the block of polymers cannot be separated or mixed together. But these block of polymers can undergo a phase separation process, and that's the way they make structures at nano level. So here is a diblock polymer called polyethylene block polyethylene oxide. So this is an amphiphilic block of polymer where polyethylene blocks is hydrophobic in nature. So when such a polymer dissolves in water, so these molecules self-organize in such a way that all the hydrophobic parts form the core and the hydrophilic part forms the shell. So that's the way they form spheres-like particles at very nano level, and they are called micelles. So I'm going to show you some of the examples of nano structures we created in our research using block of polymer self-assembly. So these are spherical structures formed from a diblock of polymer. Here the polystyrene chains form the core and PU forms the shell. In this study, we come up with very unique thread-like micelles formed by block of polymer self-assembly. We also prepared compound vesicles for the first time by using a mix of polymers and polyelectrolyte complexes. So as you can see, the structure consists of many tiny vesicles encapsulate inside a giant vesicle. We also prepared interconnected vesicles where you can see the channels connected using polymer chains. Another morphology we developed is a vesicle that is called entrapped vesicle. That is, you can see one vesicle is entrapped in another vesicle. So we used various combination of block of polymers for the design of these nanostructures. These block of polymers can also form these nanostructures in their solid state too. So these are the major nanostructures they form in their solid stage. So in addition to this, they can also form hierarchical structures such as sphere in lamellae, lamellae in lamellae, etc. So here is a couple of examples where we fabricated highly ordered nanostructures from direct self-assembly of block of polymers. We have fabricated honeycomb-like features. We also fabricated lamellar-like nanostructures. So these structures are heavily used in nano-patterning application and also for the fabrication of transistors. So you'll be seeing some examples of ordered nanostructures formed by direct self-assembly method. So in this study, we created rod-like features with hexagonal patterns from a tri-block of polymer. This work shows formation of ordered lamellar structure. So the orange and blue color representation denotes the organization of different polymer chains. Here you can see some hexagonal arrays of nanostructures with size around 30 nanometer. So here we used a double crystalline block of polymer blended with a homopolymer system. The last one is showing a hexagonal cylindrical arrays of polymer chains. So in summary, we have created various nanostructures both in solution and solid stage. So we can control the morphologies, or we can switch the morphologies by changing their molecular weight or chain length, or even their composition of each blocks in the block of polymer. We have also derived a mechanism for these materials to understand the structure formation. So in the current study, so we adopting designs from nature to create various porous materials by using this self-assembly approach. So these nanostructures were translated into macro-scale materials while preserving the order and self-assembly at nanoscale. So we developed functional fibers and forms using this approach. So the forms and fibers possess highly ordered, interconnected pores at nanoscale and microscale. We have also demonstrated application of these materials in sensing, energy storage, and adsorption applications. So here we combine to use molecular assembly and also the ordered arrays of structures such as honeycomb-like features in a graphene form. So we made a nanocomposite form by combining polyurethane with graphene. So addition of graphene leads to the formation of ordered honeycomb-like features. So these forms exhibited excellent strain sensing properties. So we have demonstrated motion sensing capabilities of these materials like finger bending, walking, and jumping. So that shows its potential applications in pressure sensing areas. In another study, we have explored crystalline phases of polymers to make forms. So we selected polyvinylidene fluoride and we combined that with graphene. So PVDF has different crystalline structures. So we found that by altering the polymorphism of PVDF, we can exert different modifications on their physical properties like thermal stability and electromechanical properties. So in the study, we demonstrated how the crystalline transformation of PVDF influence aerogel formation. And this material exhibited compressive sensing properties. We were also interested to look at structural features to make porous carbon materials. So in this particular study, we followed a soft templating process by using blocker polymers. So here the target was to make tunable carbon nanospheres with uniform porous structures. So you can see that the pure blocker polymer exhibits rod-like features, but as the reaction proceeds, the morphology was changing from the thread-like features to spherical-like features. And we use these carbon materials as the electrodes for demonstrating energy storage applications. So in our current research, we are combining self-assembly approach with adding functionalities. So by using this method, what we are doing is we are converting the two-dimensional carbon materials into three-dimensional forms. So in this particular work, we have used a electrospun mat into a three-dimensional forms, and that's the way we found that a highly interconnected network of nanofiber features that's the way we can bring efficient high oil adsorption or chemical adsorption capabilities. We also wanted to look at what will happen when we scale up self-assembled nanostructures at macro scales. So we have demonstrated this to make functional fibers. So here we designed marine sponges-like functional fibers. So these fibers exhibited meso, micro, macro-sized porous features, both the surface and the cross-section of the fibers. And these fibers exhibited high surface area. And we also checked the adsorption and energy storage properties of these fibers. Okay, so before I finish, I'd like to highlight another exciting research that we do in collaboration with CSIRO. So we are working on developing multifunctional value-added materials from animal byproducts and waste streams. So the focus is on exploiting protein materials, especially collagens. So you might know that collagen is the principal protein in animal body. So it's one of the major components of bones, tendons, and ligaments. So here is one of the outcomes of our research in this area. So together with CSIRO, we have successfully established sustainable and environmentally friendly methods to extract collagen from chicken byproducts. And we use that extraction to make carbon fibers, and we come up with highly porous carbon fibers. So these are the ACM images. So you can see that the fibers we created were very, very flexible. So in our approach, so we use very environment friendly materials and process to create opportunities in circular economy. So we are continuing this research, and we also come up with not just porous carbon fibers, but we also find that the approach is very beneficial to make sensors and similar kind of value-added materials from these waste products. So in summary, so currently I'm working on a wide variety of material designs, including self-assemble structures, functional porous materials, and we are trying to make these materials multifunctional. So we were able to create very interesting morphologies and trying to maintain the order at macro scales. So most of the studies are currently under investigation, mainly to understand the material structure and their properties. So that concludes my presentation. So finally, I'd like to thank past and present collaborators, my mentors, my funding bodies, and more importantly, my team members. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nisa, for such an inspiring talk. I'm sure all our viewers are much more educated about carbon fibers and various nanostructured carbon materials now as they were before your presentation. At least I know I am much more educated now. So now we'll take the viewers' questions one by one, and we'll try our best to pick up the maximum questions allowed in the available time frame. So the first question is for Professor Ramakrishna. It's by Mr. Alok Srivastava. He asked, can you provide some more information on the mechanism of self-powered variables which are being explored and which will be useful for onboard power generation?
Thank you, Alok. I hope you can hear me. The concept of self-power generation has several mechanisms. If we use, let's say, a motion, you can arrange two surfaces which would respond piezoelectricity, and then you design the device to a level that produces the voltage to the level you need, as well as the amperage or the total power. The question is that the only mechanism? No, there are many different concepts are there. The whole idea is, don't imagine it is powering a large building. It is not. It is mostly powering small devices that would not require external power source. Second one, where the weight is an important issue. So to repeat again, the energy can be generated or harvested by different concepts. Could be relative motion, friction, change in the dimension, or change in the morphology, change in the electrical connectivity. So we use different concepts depending on the material we're going to select, depending on the application, then you build a device and produce the energy generation. You can also extend this for thermal management. So if you design it such a way, you could also remove the heat away from the body. Should you design as a system, or you can also warm the body. So the wearables research is going in that direction.
Thank you, sir. I hope it answers the question by Mr. Alok. I have one question for Dr. Nisa regarding the collagen nanofibers. Could you just elaborate a little on the electrospinning of the collagen fibers, and what is the benefit of carbonized collagen nanofibers over the carbonized polymeric nanofibers?
Okay, so thank you for the question. First of all, I'd like to highlight that we haven't made collagen nanofibers, but we made collagen macrofibers, because our idea was to make carbon fibers. So there's a difference between carbon nanofibers and carbon fibers. I think you might have seen my presentation. Yes. So the carbon fibers, when we say we are aiming at between 6 to 7 micron size. And we haven't tried electrospinning mainly because collagen is a protein, and we know that by applying the electric, the power, we will be denaturing the protein. So that's why we come up with the wet spinning process, wet spinning approach. So what we did is we extracted collagen from chicken feet, and we used that solution for wet spinning process. So wet spinning, when I say, this is like we are converting that polymer solution into a solid fiber mat, and we are extruding that into a solvent. So that is the difference. We are not applying any electric power or anything, and that's the way we can preserve the protein, especially the helical features of the collagen. So the idea was that we wanted to use these wet spun collagen fibers for 2 different applications. So one is for the biological applications, and the other was we were curious to see what will happen or how much carbon we can preserve while we heat this protein material. And surprisingly, we find that we actually find some of carbon material. Probably Professor Sriram might know that the problem with the collagen is the thermal stability is very low. But in this wet spinning approach, we could actually maintain, but we have used some cross-linking to enhance the thermal stability of collagen. But we were very surprised to see, or we were very curious to look at the final porous carbon fibers features that actually coming from a very low price animal byproduct material.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can I just say something to support Nisa? Okay. So, I think her thinking is, I'm not sure whether she worked with Mino Nabe at Dakin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She also works. She's my collaborator too. The point is, what you guys doing is excellent. The work, and one of the important issues is sustainability. And worldwide, right now, the materials generated carbon emissions is close to 20% of the total carbon emissions by the human activities. So the carbon emissions from the materials, a wide variety of materials, is an issue. And carbon fibers traditionally has a lot of energy intensity, and moving away from any traditional approach or conventional approach towards bio-based materials like collagen, what she said, it could be cellulose or something else. I think it's a fundamental shift in trying to reduce the carbon footprint. And I think with that, we all know that, Dr. Chandra would not choose a laboratory or a center named carbon unless he thinks that is the very important, right? He's a very smart guy. So I think I agree, because carbon has so many applications. It's enormous. And for example, I give an example. There is now biggest issue with the water pollution that requires you to remove endocrines, and the carbon plays a very important role. And that is a big deal for the continuity of the human population. Otherwise, the human population becoming sterile. So Singapore and Switzerland, they already fitted water treatment plants with carbon filters. I'm just giving an example. So now imagine Nisa makes the future carbon filter from biomass that is environmentally very friendly and nice. And I think that would solve at least an important issue, which is the unfriendly processes and material systems. Human beings got used to it for the last several hundred years. So moving forward, we need to go towards sustainable solutions, and I think that's where I believe what she's trying to do. It's a long answer. It's basically to support her.
Professor, Professor Sri, actually, I have a question to you.
Sure.
Because in your presentation,
by the way, is the panel members can ask each other the question? Is it allowed? Okay. Okay. You can ask.
Yeah, I am really, because while I'm presenting, I'm still thinking about, the intelligent biomaterials. See?
Okay.
I want to know, so in that context, so are you considering, or have you thought about to use bio-inspired or bringing nature-inspired designs or features into those materials? Or what is your, the thoughts on that area?
Yeah, you're right. Right now, the closest we could get there is we use the nature-inspired surfaces for antimicrobial modifications, but that's just a basic. And I think nature uses nano micro structural arrangements for it to be somewhat protective. The core message I actually understood about the life, I've just on the chat box, I'm messaging Dr. Chandra about life. The reason is, when you understand life, all living beings trying to survive. So the survival mechanism is already built into the living beings, all living beings. That includes plants as well as all other organisms. So how are they doing that decision? Well, the humans think they are the most smartest on the planet, right? But you actually find very rudimentary organisms also able to defend themselves. They morph, and primarily based on the structural arrangement. So they actually adopt their own structures to deal with the harmful their own surroundings. So I could give lots of examples, but they're not my work. But I read a lot of brilliant work by others. But I need more people like all these guys around in this webinar to do the work, because we only have 24 hours. We need more manpower, and there's plenty of ideas. But also we had to see where the funding, based on the research funding. So main point, what you're saying, which I agree, is that the microstructural arrangements at a different length scales would bring in a lot more self-generating intelligent behavior or response. And I think that we could use it. You could already see those in a 4D printing, where they talk about the structural rearrangement of a material, and then you make a 4D. Now they talk about 5D printing as well. So yes, I think there's a lot need to be understood. And there is one more thing, just to make everybody's life more interesting and complex. I use another term, quantum concepts. So we haven't even added the quantum phenomena to the materials. And if we start adding the quantum concepts, and then if we can scale it up from angstrom level, sub-nano level to the micro and macro levels, if we can harness that, that would be brilliant. So we're constantly thinking about, it's a very difficult subject to understand quantum biology. And, but I think there is a lot of hope to pick up some of the ideas from quantum biology and other concepts and see whether we can build a system, material system, that can translate submicron, subnano functionalities or unique properties and behavior to the larger length scale. When we do that, I think we'll have even more material systems we never even imagined.
Yeah.
And of course, all these guys will get the Nobel Prize. That's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of final destination for these all efforts towards biomimicking the actual systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I believe that this fusion of multidisciplines is beginning to happen now. So if you look at the long history, I'm not here to tell the history of science, but if you look at it, let's say 500 years ago or before, you have few scientists, they almost dabble with all subjects. But the fast forward, last 300 years, each subject became so big, and even within subjects, so many narrow disciplines, everybody became specialists. But the problem with that is we're unable to leverage a lot more knowledge that's there in other disciplines. So moving forward, I believe cross-disciplinary experts will emerge. So these are the guys, they like more than one subject. They somehow understand them, they put them together. And then they're able to design things much more interesting. So it's like this, somebody understands natural systems, and then he might be working on completely on a materials engineering or computer systems or interfaces. They might come up with something, performances, behaviors, and solutions we never even imagined. Yeah, I'm highly optimistic about those. Yeah.
But as per your slide, that's going to happen in the age of 30 to maximum 20 to 35.
Well, that's what I said, because after that I may not be around. So,
so that brings me one interest, because you have presented very nicely about this interesting fact about the intelligence with the age. So you said that the peak is something around 30s, and then of course, but then what about the experience? That doesn't bring the intelligence?
No, you brought a very important point. That there is two parts to it. One is a crystallized intelligence that tend to grow. That's probably you can call a wisdom or experience-based accumulation. There is something called fluid intelligence. That's more about the dynamic connectivity of the neurons. For the audience, I know you have a global audience. Some of them may not be familiar. Just give an example. Is this tiny brain has about 100 billion neurons, and they form about more than 1 trillion junctions. To give an idea, that's much more than the number of stars in the galaxy. So can you imagine our head has so many connections? And these are the one, it's dynamic. Previously, they thought you were born with a particular pathways of networks, but the more and more new research is these networks change with your experience, knowledge, and culture. Even much more interesting is language. The language you speak apparently change these networks. It's amazing. So what it means is there's a dynamic rearrangement that's happening. So now this fluid intelligence is a lot about that dynamic reconfiguration of neural networks. But I'm now beginning to see neural networks alone is not the, going to be, we should be after, because somebody was telling me, let's say, there is inbuilt intelligence even if there is no neuron. So the cell, each cell is in our body, not the neural cells, the normal cells. They also know how to replicate themselves. So, but there is no neuron there. It could be other cells. So that means there is some level of memory intelligence. You could call it a rudimentary, it's there. So now we need to talk about intelligence more than nervous system. So probably we had to add the whole endocrine system, immune system together. So then the question is, your question is with age, is this the downhill for people after 35? Well, it is not so. In fact, that is a normal trend. You do nothing with the brain. But if you keep it active and keep attending webinars organized by Professor Dr. Chandra, I think that's it, right? And then you listen to all the speakers, the brain is already active. So I think it's a question of what do we do with it. If we can figure out a way of constantly nourishing it, and I showed one nice image where I put there lots of bubbles with lots of details. Actually, that's plenty of ways one could sustain the intelligence. Yeah. I use this slide is mainly because I always attend all these webinars I attended by young people like 20 to 30. I just want to tell them, guys, this is the best time. Don't waste time at all.
So
sometimes best time to work hard.
So there is a question also, why there is a decline in the intelligence with age? With the cumulative experience, human tends to improve their intelligence in some aspect like self-awareness, emotional knowledge.
Well, ask him if the person is in front of him. I'll ask him if he has seen any dementia patient, Alzheimer patient. It's very clear, right? They would not be the same level of him. So that means there is a decline of cognitive ability. So we should not confuse that with experience-based expert knowledge. For example, Singapore, if I've been living here for so many years now, right? Probably even if I have a bit of declined cognitive mindset, I still know where to go, how to go. I don't know I would definitely know which is the best coffee shop. Yeah. So should you come here, I know which shop to take you. So that is more strong memory-based, which goes into our what they call subconscious mind or subconscious brain. So that definitely helps in leveraging our ability. But there is something else, is dynamic intelligence. That depends on the healthiness of the neuronal connections. What I was told, with aging, these connections are getting modulated. So in a way, they are impairing your cognitive processes. So it's more in terms of understanding there are complex mechanisms involved. In some sense, what you're saying is correct. The questioner, the way you asked is, you are right. Obviously, the people with the age and experience seems to have a good knowledge or intelligence, but that's more about the wisdom and knowing the knowledge-based, experience-based knowledge. But the other one is more about the fast way of thinking. I'm very sure if you ask the same question, Nisa, if she had actually studied all this, she would answer even faster than me. Right, Nisa? Yes, she agreed.
So, to take the discussion forward, Professor Ramakrishna, I have a couple of queries. Let's say, so what do you think? What is your opinion about replacing the artificial intelligence with respect to this human intelligence? What do you think? Can we really go for that extent?
Well, I spoke to the best experts at Carnegie Mellon University about 2 years ago, before I put that slide, because I want to be very sure, because the Sophia robot is quite a very popular robot worldwide. People have seen it in action. So I took that picture, and then I was also impressed with the Sophia robot that was taken 2 years ago. And then after that, I had a chance to attend the AI conferences. So I asked the experts. So there is a variation. Most of them say current robots are nowhere close to the human intelligence, nowhere. But if you say the human have thoughts, emotions, decision process, if you amalgamate all of them, to integrate them together, I kind of feel they are able to match up to 10 to 20% of the human AI, human intelligence. But moving forward, are they able to match or surpass? human level? I think in certain aspects, probably they would. For example, computing large numbers. If our brain can compute so many in a particular second, they probably can do that even faster. Then they have a self-learning, machine learning. These are algorithms built in, and they are able to self-learn quickly. So am I scaring all of the people saying, oh, eventually we will be overtaken by these machines? I don't think so. I actually think humans are much more smarter. And they even though all the Hollywood movies show that they're going to take over, that's something people want to see, or at least feel like a fantasy. My view is it's a long way off. Definitely not 2050, not even 2100. The humanity will still be prevailing. Yes. So your point would be, if you say the AI and the human intelligence, how do I stack them? Human intelligence is a much more multidimensional.
Yeah. So last follow-up question on this. So when you see, of course, there is an aging effect we are talking about, and that's related to your intelligence. Is there any self-healing mechanism?
Sorry, the question?
Is there any self-healing mechanism?
Yeah, for the intelligence?
Yes.
Yes, there is something called neuroplasticity. So they say that even though, okay, maybe, can I show my slide?
Sure, yeah.
If I'm allowed to.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. I'll just pull that slide and then do the slide share.
So all this yoga and all that helps in the self-healing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I definitely think so. Okay, so let's see. They may be wondering, is it a nanofiber seminar or the yoga seminar now? Yes, right. Okay, guys, let's look at this one. So essentially, thoughts and emotions, and you look at sensory inputs, that is basically all your 5 senses. So constantly the eyes, the skin, smell, ears, everything. They're constantly inputting inputs to your brain. And then there is genetics, like whom you're born to, and the biochemistry and the age. Then your physical and mental health, like social isolation, definitely is affecting people. And then physical issues. Then there's the other one is lifestyle and diet. This is where India is doing very well. I think the traditional Indian diet is extremely nutritious and for the well-being of the physical body as well as the mind, absolutely no doubt. And in fact, there are a lot of people trying to understand the rich diet, which is plant-based diet. India traditionally has. That seems to have an important role on the way the brain and mind works. And then there is something called subconscious mind. This is where you are storing lots of them from your language you learn, the learnings you have from your childhood, the culture, your beliefs and experience is a huge. So you have this whole repository of database in your own head. So then you have a conscious memory, which is an active memory. Then you have imaginations and dreams. All these things are not static at all. They're dynamic. So as these guys are dynamic, that means the neuronal networks are constantly getting not totally revived, but they are modifying. And the scientific evidence says if we can practice, you can actually train these networks to your advantage. Something like habit. For example, somebody is a chain smoker, they give up smoking and they pick up something else, they're shifting their attitude. Similarly, somebody likes, like Nisa making carbon fibers, if I can convince her biology is good, she may change to biology, right? So what that means? It's basically retraining these habitual processes. They call choose to change your mind. So yes, I think, but I don't want to stretch here too much and say everything is possible. No, all I'm saying is, if you think it is not possible to change, answer is no, it is possible to change. But you say, I change 100%, I don't know. It's like somebody challenges me here, can you be totally like Dr. Chandra's brain? Probably not. It's difficult, right? And of course, he doesn't want that also. So, and then I used to, in my lectures, I used to say if there is a head transplantation, would there be any real change? Is that going to be? But now I understood a little more, is head is only a part of our total intelligence and memory. Apparently, is a lot more systems in our body is also playing a role. So while I gave the long answer, direct answer, the question is, can we consider that these neuronal pathways, can they be rewired? Answer is yes. And can they be adjusted? Yes, it can be done. Yeah, but it requires a lot of practice. And some people go for the medication, some people go for certain medical treatments. The others choose meditation, changing the lifestyle.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is a follow-up question from Mr. Alok. Yes, is it possible to apply non-invasive electrospun fibers for capturing EEG signals? And how difficult it will be, since noise will be a major issue?
Yeah, yes, it is a problem, because right now the current EEG instruments are much better. And we have been thinking about it. We still haven't got a good way how to do it. You're right, the noise to signal issue is there. But I encourage you to do this. If you can come up with a wearable cap, and which is completely textile, even whether you use electrospinning or not, but if you are able to make those caps other than the standard sensors, I'm very sure you would be able to make it much more sensitive, also much more comfortable to wear. More than that, you can now think of reversing it to modulate the brain waves. We have alpha, beta, gamma, delta waves in our brains. And if there is a way you can actually externally modulate them, I think you are already helping certain people with certain mental difficulties or challenges. Of course, they're not going to be as effective as invasive, because invasive are directly going to the target tissue or the specific region of the brain. But in this case, even though you're not approaching directly into the inside invasively, non-invasively also, you should be able to address some of them. So I've seen some papers published in Nature and Science where there are professors in Canada. They now say they tried on their students, agreed students, and after that they became more creative. Then I'm thinking, wow, that's very good.
So thank you so much, sir, for your kind replies to the questions. So in the end, on the behalf of Carbon Lab, I wish to thank all the distinguished speakers, Professor Sriram Ramakrishna, Dr. Nisa Salim, for sparing their precious time to share their research ideas. We believe that all the Carbon Lab members, alumni, and other viewers on YouTube found it very useful and may get some new insights in their areas. For more information to our viewers, we will meet again at the same platform next month on 13th February 2021 with yet another exciting webinar on research development related to the electrochemical sensors. So see you there.
Okay, bye-bye.
So
Thank you.
last but not the least, as a part of the 10th year celebration, we are excited to announce an international Sayat competition being organized by Carbon Lab along with the Indian National Young Academy of Sciences, INYAS, with the support of National Young Academies of Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Thailand. Sayat Image Competition is an effort to encourage creativity among young researchers to present their scientific findings in an artistic manner for public outreach. Kindly visit INYA's webpage for more information. The entries for this competition may be submitted from January 22nd till February 5th. You can follow these discussions and the further updates on our official YouTube channel. Take care, goodbye, and stay safe.
Thanks.
All the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nisa. Thank you.
Oh, everybody's still here, so I can't go away. So you stop recording or still recording?
Madhvi, you can stop the streaming.
Otherwise, you can't hold the smile that long, you know.